Hello, 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 hello. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the stream. Great to see so many of you wonderful people here once again this morning. And let's start out by saying hello to everybody we got in the house today. Let's see who we got. News Now Enemy, you're first. Excellent, thank you. Glad to see you always. Peck, what's up? How's things down under? All right, mate. Let's see. We got News Now Enemy. What's up? Terry Bonds. Good morning from Kentucky. Terry Bonds. It's probably cold as hell out there, huh? In Australia, I know. Anywhere besides the United States, that isn't really that. It's like, hey, come on, jerk, whatever. It's nothing. Um, oh, cool, another mass shooting. Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome to America. Nancy Marcho, good morning. What's up? Good to see you. Terry Barnes, Pack, Nancy, Luna Nights, what's up? Hey. Um, let's see, Terry Barnes, you're I Kiss. What's up, I Kiss? Glad to see you. Hope you're feeling good out there, associates. Hello, welcome, welcome back once again. I am back. Yeah, I know he's a Packers fan, but he's still a homie. Nancy, Stanley Hayes, good morning. Hezokuai morning crew, rise and shine with Hezokuai. That's right. There's the intro music. Yes, yes, yes. Let's see. Wharf Bear, what's up? How's it going? Good to see ya. Let's see. JH Awestruck. Wow, I'm awestruck, baby, by your presence in my chat. Cliff Hickson, what's up, Cliff? Good to see ya. ATV Thunder. Good morning, rise and shine with Hezokuaiers. Yes. G'day. Terry, J.H. Hotstruck, Wharf Bear. What else we got? Stan Hawkins. What's for breakfast? A dose of stupidity, I'm quite sure. There'll be some of that. David A. Perillo Jr.'s back. Made up rules for no breakfast. The first serving is no cameras. Stan Hankins. Yum. All right. Let's see. Dave, ATV, Nancy, Stan. Uncle Artie's Bar and Grill of Stupidity in the house and ready to burn it down. I wasn't sure if you'd be here because we were up late last night, with your stream, but that was fun, man. You had some fun stuff, man. That was good. Thank you for having me up last night. Let's see. Jimbo, what's up? Let's see. Adam Strange, what's up? Terry Barnes, ATV Corrections 101. Good to see ya. Welcome, welcome. Niles, Nils, what's up? Good to see you. Glad to have you here. Graham, it's Graham. Hey there, everyone of the awesome Rise and Shine with Hezokuai crew. Yeah. Captain Happy, what's up? Billy Yerk, Edward Kettler, Jimbo, Adam Strange. Oh no. Lumberjack Bowl, hell yeah. I'm here. Got to play Pretty Cholita. Pretty Cholita. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we can do that. Gotta love Uncle Artie's Bar and Grill of Stupidity. If you're not familiar, he's a man. He's one of the captains of Tennille. Anyway, yeah, I'll go ahead and play his video for you. You guys will probably like this. Freedom isn't free. That's right. You know how many American heroes had to die to get it? And just so that you idiots could waste it on frauditing. Let's see. Pretty Cholita, the beta bitch no one wants to meet. Pretty Cholita, you're a grifting geek. Pretty Cholita, you're gonna meet a U.S. attorney. Pretty Cholita, your crimes are felonies. Pretty Cholita, soon you'll be Bubba's sweet cheeks. Pretty Cholita, you chickened out of a fight. Pretty Cholita, you're a loser freak. Pretty Cholita, go fuck yourself. Cause you look like cousin Fuck you. All right. That was Uncle Artie's Bar and Grill Stupidity with his new number 1 hit single, Pretty Cholita. Yes, it's skyrocketing up the charts. #1 with a bullet. Cindy Lucian, what's up? Good to have you here. He's on Twitter crying right now. Yeah, he's that chilly. Adam Strange. He is a punk, man. I don't know, man. He's chilly. Well, at least he can't post for a while because what did they say? They got 15,000 complaints on him. Holy crap! Um, so anyway, right off the bat, I want to say that today that was actually a good vibe to start the whole thing because today I want to do more of a kind of chill stream. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Obviously, I'll be here tomorrow morning, but it'll be my Thanksgiving stream. Um, and today we got a lot of stuff to do to set up for tomorrow. So, like I said, today I wanted to be more of just like a chill hangout. Hang out with you guys, talk a little bit, see, you know, if there's anything that you guys want to get into specifically. Maybe point and laugh at a couple idiots. But again, I don't have like a specific thing I want to go over today. I just want to have some fun. So while I'm looking to see what we have here, let's see. I know that Unclean has a premiere at 10 a.m. So we're definitely going to want to. I don't know if I'll still be on by then, but just in general, so you guys are aware, you might want to check that out. Let's see. Right off the bat, I see Nasty Nathaniel just posted something. Thanksgiving week with Hezokuai. Oh, it's Chris Jackson, the leader of the Moors. He keeps trying to fight me ever since I made that video saying that I'm the new leader of the Moors. He's like, no, I am. Anon One News, what's up? Welcome. You and Q should hook up, spread some misinformation or some real information about how bad frauditors are. But there is something, a specific subject that I did want to kind of get into a little bit in the beginning here, because it came up the day before yesterday and yesterday. And so I was thinking about it. And hold on. My throat's getting a little itchy. All right. Adam, was that directed at me? Let's see. All frauditors are Moorish. All frauditors are idiots. So anyway, I was thinking about oh, Artie, you're the best. So I've been thinking about this, and when we covered Afro Idiot the other day, hey, what's up, Christina? When we were covering the Afro Boy the other day, he was talking about how, and for those of you who don't know, all right, because he's not like a big deal or anything, he's trying to become one, but getting arrested every day. He's a kid. He's like, I think he's 18 now, 19. He's just a punk. But a big part of the problem with him, for those of you who've only seen the little bits and pieces of him, trying to audit here and there, the biggest problem with him is that, and he's put this in some of his videos, again, for those of you who don't know, his dad supports what he's doing. See, if I went out and did what he did and my dad found out, he'd beat the hell out of me and call me an idiot and say, don't you ever do that again. But his dad is just pumping all this anti-cop hate into him all day. He's like, yeah, those stupid punk cops. I told you they were assholes. And see, now you know that they are because they arrested you and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no. When you get arrested, your parents are supposed to beat the hell out of you when they find out you got arrested. They're not supposed to say, yeah, those damn cops, you go out there and you keep showing them, kid. So he's being encouraged by his family to do this nonsense. So the kid has no future. There's nothing good is ever going to happen to him because he's being raised to do this. Like, I don't know, what's his name? I am against it. Press this kid. He's never going to do anything with his life because his dad taught him from birth how to be a bunghole. So anyway, so when Afro Kid was on the Afro Live, whatever. When he was on there on the stream there with B2 Life Explained, and Kid came in there and ripped into him. It was great or whatever. But during the whole thing, uh, there was a specific case that he was clinging on to from Good Citizen News, where he's saying, we now have case law that proves in court that frauditors can do whatever they want, whenever they want, as long as they're filming. And he kept pointing to this case as the case law to prove that it's legit. What's up, Miss Mandy? Great to have you here. Good to see you. So just another nut. What's up? So anyway, he does that and he talks about this case. So then yesterday, I actually found the case he was talking about. They actually have the whole thing on Good Citizen News channel. So I watched it and watched it here with you guys. And what happened was the judge, and they put in all caps in the title, "We won in court," right? The judge never makes a decision, win or loss. He moves it to a different date with the grand jury. So that isn't a win at all. And that it doesn't establish case law at all. But I dug a little deeper into it after that because it made me think, why are these guys pointing at this case as proof that they're okay to do what they do? And I went back and I watched the entire trial again, and it hit me. A big part of the problem, and this is one of the reasons why what people like I do, what like a lot of the guys in the chat do, what our whole community does, this is one of the reasons why what our community does is so important. Because going back and watching the case again, I realized something. The reason why these guys are taking this case as proof that they're okay to do what they do is because at one point while the judge is talking, one of the reasons he decides to send it to the grand jury is because he didn't feel it would be fair for him to make that determination, because he didn't quite understand exactly what the kid was doing wrong. But at the same time, he understood that the building had the right to trespass him, right? So he's like, that's, give it. But it gets a little bit more complicated than that. But ultimately, this is what I was thinking about, and this is what I realized. The average, the average person has no idea that this whole First Amendment audit thing is a thing. You just walk up to some random Joe on the street and ask them if they ever heard of a First Amendment auditor. They'll look at you like you're from Mars. They don't know what the hell you're talking about. Even though they get thousands of subs and millions of views, that's global, right? And the amount of people who are actually aware that this even is a thing is very, very minor percentage of the population. So what's happening is you're getting these judges who all they know is the argument that the frauditor is making in court. Well, I was just there filming, and all of a sudden they're telling me, get out, and how dare you, and that's a violation of my First Amendment rights. And they don't know that this is a thing, that these people are constantly going out, specifically, purposely going out of their way to cause problems to file a lawsuit. So the judge is thinking, oh, so wait, he just walked in there with a camera? Oh, well, I don't see anything wrong with that, because they don't understand what this whole process is. And even if the cop, the journalist from the bango dude, even if the judge watches the video in question, one of the things, and again, I get it. It's the process. It has to be followed and it has to be fair, right? So if you're in court for a specific event, then the video you made of that event is going to be in evidence. So the judge isn't going to be aware of the fact that this guy does this all day, every day, and that this is just another one of a million videos of him acting stupid to try and bait people into giving him a hard time so that he could file a lawsuit. All the judge is going to see is the video regarding the specific incident he's on trial for. And I get that. I understand that. That makes sense when it comes to fairness and unbiasedness. At the same time, it puts the judge in a position where all he sees is, okay, the dude walked in there. Maybe he said a couple rude things or whatever, but he was just minding his own business with his camera. What's the problem? It's like, no. You have to understand that this is a thing. This is a movement. These are idiots in groups that go into places and harass everybody until the cops come. And I hate, and they do it all the time. And I keep watching more videos and I keep still seeing it. I hate the fact that, and it's another level of the I'm a journalist argument, right? We all love to look at them and say, when they say I'm a journalist working on a story, that, well, they're not really a journalist, right? But even more so on a Debos Nation, what's up? On an even deeper level, there's more to it than that, because when they say I'm a journalist working on a story, but I can't tell you what that story is, they will be arguing with, just say, for example, what's up, Grandma Wolf? Just say, for example, they're arguing with the cop, right? And they'll say, I don't have to leave. I don't have to do this. And it's terrible that they called you out here. And how dare they do this just for a journalist working on a story? All I am is a journalist working on a story. And all of a sudden, you guys are here harassing me. The reason why they'll never tell you what the story is because that interaction is the story. So in the interaction, you're going to argue about how dare you come here and do this to me when I'm just trying to film a story. But that interaction is the story you came there to film. That's why you had to create the story. That's why you had to push and push and push until they called the cops, so that the cops could come and bam, the interaction you're having with the police is the story. So screaming and hollering at the cops about how dare you come here to interrupt my story when they are the story is just another example of how you have to lie to fraud it. You have to, because you have to tell them a flat out lie. You have to say, I'm working on a story and you guys shouldn't be here interrupting my story. No, that's a lie, because they are the story. Man, these guys are liars. They're idiots. They're dumb as a pile of rocks. Oh, Lord. And that's the other thing, too. The whole idea of trespass, right? Edward is saying this. So, yes, that's the thing. Like, these guys are under the impression that they have the right to do this, which of course they do, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But they seem to be under the impression that doing this is, let me go back for a second. It's the whole trespass thing, right? It's like, okay, let's say I walk into Walmart and I'm there hooping and hollering, and I'm not buying anything. I'm just, Walmart's got a lot of space and they got cool stuff. I'm going to go to the place where they got the weights, the exercise equipment section, and I'm just going to work out right there for free because they got all the equipment right there, right? And they're like, hey, what do you do? You can't do that. And you know what? I'm not stealing it or anything. It's in the store. I didn't even take the label off, right? So I didn't commit a crime. And then they ask me to leave, and I don't. Bam! The second I refuse to leave is when I'm guilty of trespass. But this is a major, major piece of the stupidity of not just the frauditors, but the sovereign citizen movement as well. A major piece of their stupidity overall is this idea that you have to commit a crime, but their definition of crime is you have to physically injure someone. So, by their standard of, and there's a lot of them who believe even more so, like the Daryl Brooks types, that you can hurt someone and it's still okay because you're not part of the United States corporation. So they can't tell you not to kill people. They can't tell you anything. That's almost like something James Freeman might say. I don't know. But um, when they do the whole you have to commit a crime to be trespass thing, the problem is they're always, always, always talking about the idea of, well, what crime did I commit? Right? That wording was chosen for the original script very carefully and very specifically. It's not just a random thing that they always say, that they all say. Those specific words are used for a very specific purpose. Because if you're got a cop talking to you and you say, well, what crime have I committed? In the United States, you're innocent until proven guilty. So if they say you committed this crime, now they're assuming guilt. In this country, you're supposed to assume innocence. So right there, before anything happens, they're already baiting the cop into saying something that later can be used in court for a dismissal, because they're never going to win on the merits of their arguments. They never have and they never will, because their arguments have no merits. Right? If they win, it's either because of some sort of a, well, like, for example, Amagansett Press won a case, right? Because legally, when you're looking at certain things a certain way, right, you have to cross your T's and dot your I's, and everything has to be perfect, or there's going to be a problem. And when you're outside on the sidewalk and yapping, 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 yapping in your ear, then you can get upset. And from the judge's point of view, who again, the judge doesn't know or understand that these people do this on purpose, right? They don't get that this guy goes out there every day and films himself baiting cops, waiting for one to take the bait. All the judge sees is the one who took the bait. And think, oh, well, this guy just came filmed and all of a sudden you guys are after him. I don't understand the problem. Ugh. So anyway, David is like really grasping at straws, trying to compare. B2 Life Explained. There he is. What's up, buddy? Great to see you. So when they get these so-called victories in court, right? It's always just garbage. Hey, you know what? Hey, B2, do you want to come up and hang out? Because I just wanted to do a hangout stream since tomorrow's a holiday, and I don't know, just have a chill stream. But anyway, like I was saying for David, if it, you can't compare what the legitimate press does to what these guys do based on the fact that they get paid to do it. All right. It's never the fact. And I love the way that you guys always break everything we say down to its most. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, there's a famous interview. Well, Scott, I'm just talking in general about the idea of frauditing. Because like I said, since tomorrow's a holiday, today I wanted it to be more kind of like a chill stream kind of deal. I'm gonna put this in there for B2. if he wants to hang out for a little bit. But anyway, okay. So what I was saying is, there's this famous interview that Jordan Peterson did with this lady on British TV. I think it was for the BBC, where everything he says, she's like, "Oh, so what you mean is this?" And she says something completely different than what he just said. And the whole interview just keeps going. She just keeps doing that to him, doing it and doing it and doing it. And eventually it gets to the point where, of course, he outsmarts her. And, it became viral because he's got her like, hey, what's up, unclean hands? Good to see you. So that happens, right? And they take all this stuff, and it's the same thing that happens with the arguments with these guys. And what I'm saying, like, when we say that these guys go out there and claim that the reason why they do what they do is for freedom and the First Amendment. And then our argument is, no, you can tell that they're just doing it for money. And then you say, oh, well, quote unquote, real press is doing it for money. It's like, well, yeah, but if I'm walking down the street and I see a broken pipe, I'm going to film it and have a water main break story on the news that night, and I'm going to get paid for it. But I'm not going to sit there with a pickaxe and break the water main so that I can film it. That's different. And that's the equivalent to what frauditors do. Ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to B2 Life Expert. What's up?
Good morning, Hezokuai, and good morning, everybody else. How we doing today?
Pretty good. Just chilling. Like I say, since tomorrow's the holiday, I wanted to make today kind of more of just a chill stream, hang out, chat.
You mean you're actually going to do something that makes sense? That separates you from every frauditor we've ever known.
Right? Oh, man. These guys are so ridiculous. And it's amazing seeing, like, every day it seems like there's a new one popping up. And it's like this thing's spreading. And I thought by now it'd be dying, not growing.
Well, I was having a conversation on my Discord last night about all these frauditors. They all seem to have what's going on, Corrections 101 and Unclean Hands and Blanche and everybody else who's tagging me in chat. Good to see you guys. But I was having a conversation on my Discord yesterday, and the point was made that you can give a basic description of what a frauditor does, and the answer is always, you got to be more specific, because they all do the same thing.
Yep. Yep. It is too. And you get your occasional, I broke it down in my book. I broke it down into like these categories, right? That I called them different techniques. Like there was one I called the smelly Cereal technique, named after Glenn Cereal, and another one I called the liar technique for Long Island audits. It's all the same script, and it's all the same thing. The difference is the level of aggression you show while you're doing it, right? You could walk in there and very calmly and politely say, "You're a stupid cunt. Give me my FOIA." But you still called her a stupid cunt, right? Like,
Right.
But then if you go in there and you're just shouting and yelling, then yeah, it's more obvious. But it's still the same thing.
Well,
You know?
we had a conversation about, since you bring it up, we had a conversation about use of those terms after my stream on Sunday, after
Yep.
Afro Man used those terms with Witch.
Yep.
And the thing that boggles my mind is, it's one thing when you disagree with someone. I mean, anybody
Yes.
can disagree. I'm going to say that pepperoni is the best pizza topping, and someone out there is going to say, "No, you idiot, you're wrong. It's sausage." And they have a point.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we come to blows over it. But if you saw the stream we did on Sunday, it's
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's a perfect encapsulation of how these frauditors operate. The second someone disagrees with them, they take it up to 11 and start hurling insults. And I'd say I don't get it, but I actually kind of do get it. They all have problems with authority.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I saw that. We talked about it, remember, offline. But anyway,
That's right. That's right. You're right.
Yeah. But anyway, the a perfect example of that for me is I was on Paul Unslaved's panel last week, and we were actually, there were like 9 of them and me, right? It was all dogpile crazy. But anyway, the point is, getting back to what you were saying, we were having an actual nice discussion. We were disagreeing, but we were talking. The thread that was keeping the conversation on the cool level was Joe Cool. Even though he's on the other side, he is always like he wants to hear what you have to say, even if he doesn't agree with it. So he kind of was the glue. But as soon as he left, they started asking me, and it was still cordial. But then one of them said, "Let me ask you something, Hezokuai. Have you ever wore a diaper on your face?" Now, obviously, I'm not an idiot. I know that he meant a mask, right?
Right.
But if I were to acknowledge that, then I'm giving them that word because they're calling it a diaper. Obviously, you know what they mean by that. But that's like an insult thing. That's like, I'm not going to take face diaper, and accept that by responding properly. So I told them the absolute literal truth. No, I've never worn a diaper on my face. Why would I wear a diaper? Diapers are for babies. And then they all like, "Oh, you're just playing dumb and you're just acting stupid. You know what we mean." And like, yeah, whatever. And then they're like, "Have you ever worn a face mask into a building?" And I was like, "Well, if I went to a building and it said masks required, I put my mask on before I went in." Yeah.
Right.
And immediately, the second I said that, immediately the whole chat is telling me about how fat I am, how ugly I am, how stupid I am, how I'm never going to get laid, how my life is worthless. It's like they just immediately dogpiled on me with the insults. And I just kept saying, "Where's the argument? Where's the argument?" And then they muted me, and I took a sign and I wrote, "Do you have any facts?" And I held it up to the screen, and no argument, just insults. That's all they had.
And the comparison that I've seen is when you watch something like, what's that guy's name? I guess it's Josh Lanto on his streams when they're going with
BSBT, yeah,
him and that guy Press Harder and some of the others. It devolves into an episode of Jerry Springer like right off the bat.
Oh yeah, every time.
And that's typical of all the Frauditor channels. They want to step on each other. They want to argue. They want this, that, and the other. And you look at one of our channels, it's never like that. It's never like that. So,
nope.
And I like I watched as much of your stream the other day as I had time for, and I love that you said you won't go along with their word games like you just described, the face diaper versus face mask. I love the fact that you don't play those games. That's the mistake that I think a lot of people make when these frauditors show up. They'll go along with their word games to try to placate them. And it's like, no. All you're doing is encouraging them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. As soon as and that's one of the things I learned from watching a lot of these guys' court cases too, is like, as soon as somebody who's testifying, like yesterday, I was watching this court case where this guy was like, "Well, what crime did I commit?" And he's like, "Well, it was an infraction." And he's like, "So it wasn't a crime?" He's like, "No, it was a violation and you committed it." Right. Then later on, during cross, the prosecutor's like, "So when did you witness the crime?" And he's like, "Well, I clocked him at 79 miles an hour, blah, blah, blah." So then that turns into, wait a minute, you just testified that it wasn't a crime. Now that you're being led by the prosecution to call it a crime, you're calling it a crime. And it's like, they're just playing word games. Like, he's answering the question the way it's posed, and he's not, like, the way these guys talk, it's almost like you literally have to sit there with a dictionary, and every time they say a word, you have to look up the definition and go through specifically what it means, which they're not going to accept the definition anyway, because they already have their definition in their head. I said this yesterday, and I don't think you were here, so I'll say it again, because I actually wrote it down. I wanted to make it part of my normal shtick of like the points that I bring up, because like I said, I just came up with this yesterday on the stream, is this idea that is Salacious in the house. What's up? Good to see you. So what it is these guys have their own ideas, right? Their own definitions. They've created this language where driving means commerce and traveling means freedom, and like they twist all these definitions to all these words. And then they hold the police, the courts, the lawyers, and the judges to a certain standard based upon their false understanding of the law. So, of course, none of the people they meet are ever going to meet their standard because it's an insane, fake, made up sovereign citizen standard.
Well, think about having said all that. Think about how often uh, you hear frauditors and sovsits accuse others of gaslighting. I mean,
Yep.
you hear it every time they get stopped. And what you just said is as perfect a rebuttal to that as
Mm-hmm.
anyone could ever hope to construct, right?
Yep.
They have these, I don't want to say bizarre definitions, but these,
Sometimes.
yeah, you're right. They have their own definition, shall we say, of what things are and their own worldview. And they try to twist things around to trap others in that worldview. And have you seen any of these Fridays with Frank videos that are popping up now?
No.
Oh,
I don't know.
there's one where the deputy, his name is Frank Sloop, I think, uh, but he came up against a sovereign citizen and like exactly as you described, he wouldn't play his word games. He wouldn't. I don't want to say he wouldn't let him get a word in edgewise because he listened. He's very patient, but he wouldn't play the game. And if I can find that, I'll send that to you because
Yeah.
that is an epic clip.
I love that. Yeah, see, and that's it. And as soon as you start giving them an inch, they take 400 miles, and they constantly move the goalposts,
Oh
right? So
yes.
that no matter what, you can never win. You can't even make an argument. My favorite example of that is they walk into somewhere and say, "Hey, you can't film here." Well, there's no sign saying I can't film. Oh, okay, fine. We'll put up a sign. Oh, that sign's unconstitutional.
Hmm.
Like I thought you said we needed a sign. Now you're saying that the sign doesn't matter. Always moving the goalpost, always changing it, whatever they can to get their clicks and views. That's what it comes down to.
It is, and there's a terrific example of that that's emerged just recently. Have you ever seen anything from Georgia Transparency?
I have. I'm not extremely familiar, but I've seen them.
So without knowing what you know, I'll give everybody a quick primer. Georgia Transparency is the private investigator that was fired from his job after coming. He was sitting in a parking lot. An officer rolled up on him, and the officer was being polite, but instead of working with the officer to provide identification and so on, he went to the frauditor script and he was
Oh boy,
arrested and he was fired. He represented himself at he let me back up. He was fired.
that's the one I've seen, by the way.
Okay. Well, there's more to that story. This is just the warm up. Um, he was fired before the court hearing, which is a sign by itself. But then he went to court, represented himself, and was found guilty. Now, you would think, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you get a parking ticket, it might encourage you to be a little more careful about where you park, right? In other words,
That's the idea.
that is the idea. And you and me would learn from our mistake, right? This
Yep.
is what Georgia Transparency did. He doubled down on frauditing. And I've heard several people make the comment that he used to be a fairly decent guy. And since he got fired, he's just gone down this spiral to where he's an antagonizer like everybody else. So, videos of his that I have seen, or more to the point that I've seen covered by others, uh, he went to like a school administrative building, and he and an accomplice were shoving their phones in people's faces. And when they were locked out of the building, like the chief administrator like yanked the door shut so they couldn't get in to quote unquote public lobby,
Right.
which was glorious. Uh, so then they went around and started trying to film in all the windows. And
Yeah.
like, so that's one. More recently, Georgia Transparency, and I think the same accomplice went to a prison. And I'm sure I needn't tell you how that turned out for him. They both
Yeah.
got arrested, and I want to say I could be wrong. So, folks in chat, if I'm wrong, please don't roast me because I've been wrong before. But I'm pretty sure that this time there were felony charges against Georgia Transparency.
I wouldn't be surprised.
No,
It's there's so many things that and I get so frustrated sometimes. What's up, unclean hands? um, Watching these idiots and listening to what they do, and I've tried, and this is why I've been on BSBT's panel. I've been on Audit Them's panel. I've been on Paul Enslaved's panel. I want to give these guys an opportunity to really make their case. Like I don't want to just say I disagree with you without absolutely knowing that I have a full and complete understanding of what it is I'm disagreeing with. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, let me hear you give me your shtick. What do you
Mm-hmm.
and every time it either is just the same nonsensical script that we all know has been
Yes.
debunked a million times, or it devolves into name calling and insults and just
Yes.
BS. So it's like there is no argument there. And part of the problem too, getting back to the idea of them having this way they speak, right, and
Yes.
this whole language of their own. Part of the problem that I've found is that a lot of these guys believe that the judges and the cops and the lawyers and all these people know full well that the definitions of words that these guys made up are the actual definitions. And that's why you go to law school. That's why you go to the police academy. That's why you do these things, is so that they can teach you how to violate all of that and destroy people's freedom and rights.
Yes.
Like, so that's another part of the problem is when they say, well, I wasn't driving, I was traveling. In their head, you know that I just called you out. So now what are you going to do? Because you already know that that's true. It's like, no, they don't, because it's not. Like, that's just some made up nonsense.
Well,
They
look at
don't know that.
well look at look. Apologies for that
It's
headphone
early
warning because
morning.
I went from having a chest cold last week to now it's my sinuses. So I apologize if I'm
Uh,
coughing. But look at Chile as a good example. The
mm-hmm.
second he hears something he disagrees with, out come the personal insults. And it proves to me two things. It proves to me that they lack a factual basis to rebut debunking of their claims, for lack of a better term.
Yep.
But on top of that, even worse, they lack the emotional maturity, what Kafar would call the intellectual honesty, to engage in a discourse with people who have different opinions. You either, but like in Chile's case, you either believe what he says or he'll threaten to fight you or whatever it is he does.
Oh, yeah. Well, your stream that we were just talking about is a perfect example of that. When Kick came on, even though obviously we all know Kick, right?
Hmm.
But he gave the kid every chance in the world to actually listen, to actually maybe learn something. He didn't like attack until he was provoked, and it got to a point where obviously this kid's just a brain dead idiot and he's not going to listen, because everything he said, they're going to argue. And that's always the thing. It's you're wrong. And I always use this as an example, and it's on a much smaller scale, but it's still true. Um, I always talk about the whole comeback thing because
Yes.
if your goal, because this is what you're telling your fans, this is what you're telling us, this is what you're telling the world. Your goal is to make it so that anyone can film anything at any time and not be bothered, unless you're filming them.
Yep.
Then it's a major problem and they have to FOIA your phone and it's the end of the world. How dare you film me? It's like, if you're fighting for the right to film, you should be celebrating the fact that I'm filming you, not arguing with me about it and trying to FOIA my phone and threaten to get me fired for filming on the job.
Well, it's no different than what we always say with them wanting to expose other people's personal information. It's transparency for others, but not for them.
Oh yeah, big time.
And I'd actually like to share a bit of a backgrounder since you brought up the stream and bringing Kick on. I'd like to share something that people probably don't know. Um, so that night, I was actually being very strategic about how I handled things. It is not an accident that Kick came in when he did. I played it off as people in chat are requesting it, but as soon as he popped up in the side chat, I started getting DMs on Discord saying bring Kick on, and I said nope, this is going to unfold in a certain way. So what I was doing that night, I know people probably thought I was being unfairly harsh to my regular panel members to give Afro Man a chance to speak, but I was actually proving a point. And in a way, I was trying to be my own Judge Doro. So this is what was happening. I wanted to give, there you go. I wanted to give Afro Man every opportunity to prove, not through his words necessarily, but through his behavior, that the charges against him were unfounded. And we, just like Judge Doro did during that trial, I gave him every courtesy. I actually gave him more rope than I would have given anybody else, probably. And we all saw what he did with it. So when I was trying to keep the peace, but go back and watch that stream. You'll notice that when Kick came on, I went silent. And
Yep.
and the reason is, by the time that I brought Kick on, or should I say, when I brought Kick on, I had already made the determination that Afro Man was just off the rails and he was irredeemable, and
Right.
that there was nothing further to be gained by letting him do his thing any further. So that's when I brought Kick in, and I just let him do his thing. So
Yep.
I know some people, like I said, I know some people felt some kind of way about how I handled that stream, but believe me, as difficult as it was for you guys to watch, think about how I felt having to at least appear to tamp down my regular panel members for Afro Man's benefit. I hated to do that, and in the after stream, I actually apologized to them for that. So
Oh no.
and I'd
Well,
also
you know
like
what?
to,
Yeah, go ahead.
before we go on, I would like to address two things that I saw in the side chat earlier, if I may.
Okay.
Um, I saw Corrections 101, I think, made a comment about Daryl Brooks being a sob sit. There is a solid discussion in debating whether Daryl Brooks actually is a sovereign citizen, or if he was just using that to try to get out of that situation. I personally think that it was the latter, not the former, but that's a discussion we can have later. But another comment, and I saw several comments from one of your channel members, and I'm looking at one right now. Quote: "Because Brandon kicks out everyone that doesn't agree with him," and that same user called me a snowflake and has made several other disparaging remarks about me uh, in your streams that I've watched. Uh, so David Perillo, I absolutely do not kick out people who disagree with me. First of all, part of what makes my channel what it is that people are allowed to disagree. I don't necessarily agree with people, but we can disagree respectfully. Um, and I think several of the recent streams that I've had where I didn't agree with one of my regular panelists bears that out. I said my opinion, they said theirs, and we moved on. And that's it. Never needs to be any more dramatic than that. So we'll consider that statement debunked just right out the gate. But to your other comments that say that I was crying the other night on panel, that I am some kind of snowflake, you're entitled to your opinion, but I don't agree with it, and I don't think a lot of people would agree with you. That's just my opinion. But to say that I was crying the other night, no. What I was doing was keeping things on track and basically just keeping control of my panel. And if in your mind that means I was crying, then Hezekiah and I've already discussed that people have different meanings for different terms to suit their narratives. So you go on with your bad self. So
Yeah. Yeah, David is our resident frauditor or pro frauditor who comes in here every day. And like on one hand, it's like, well, he's here every day. So in a sense, he's supporting the channel and he's not, like Unclean is saying right now. him and David have this thing where like he's always got an eye on him, and unclean as a wrench. So whatever he needs to do, he'll do. But my rule has always been, if you're not being blatantly like racist or sexist or something like that, I'm not going to kick anybody. But if he crosses the line, he'll get a boot. He's been booted a few times.
Okay.
Um,
And I like
so
that.
yeah,
I like that approach, by the way, because word for word, that's exactly how Schrodinger used to handle things.
right. But going back to what you were saying a minute ago, I'm working on a project right now. It's still, I don't talk about it too much because it's still on the down low, but um, I included it. It's this thing that I'm doing where I have these certain, like I said, I don't want to give too much away right now because it's going to be something special, but um, it talks about like all of us. Okay. And here's because this is go back to what you were saying about explaining what your strategy was.
Mm-hmm.
This was how I described you in the project I'm working on right now. It
Uh-oh.
says B2 Life Explained,
Uh-oh.
expert moderator, absolutely adept at moderating panel discussions. He completely demolishes frauditors by allowing them to talk themselves into a bottomless pit.
I love it.
Yeah, so I got it.
I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
If if
Yeah.
if you need a photo to go with it, you've got a good shot of my best side right here on your screen.
So you want me to use that one? All right.
You can use that. You can use a still from any of my live streams. Whatever makes the most sense.
All right. You know what? Okay, I'm going to reveal something. Can you see the screen? Like, I don't know if you're on the computer or.
I am at my PC. So what you got?
All right, here, check this out. This is what I've been working on. Okay, so you know what a TGC is?
I do not.
The card game. It's basically like a game where you have cards and you play against each other, and each card has different powers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm making a TGC for our community and for the frauditing community in general. And here, I'll show you your card. Here, hold on. There it is. You see it?
I see it.
And that's got the writing that I just read
That
at the bottom there.
That is epic. That is the laugh that I didn't know I needed this morning.
Thank you. Yep. So that's what I'm working on right now. And eventually I want to make it, to the point where I will physically have cards that people can get and hold in their hands. And so that's the ultimate goal, is to make that an actual thing, like a physical product. And I initially made it for the only reason why, honestly, and since we're discussing it, I want to bring this up because the only thing about it, I'm not sure. And the reason why I've been trying to keep it kind of like a secret is because what I just showed you are the hero cards, which is all of us, right? But I also have, you got to play against somebody. I have the idiot cards, which are all frauditors. But then I wonder, like, if I actually put these cards out and I'm using their images, is that going to cause issues, especially with looking at like the way Chili's handling stuff with lawsuits and everything? So I don't know if that's going to be a problem. But
Chili, this is the thing with Chili. I am not a lawyer, first of all, but
right.
I know just enough to ask some dumb questions. So when it comes to Chili's lawsuits, look at his recent track record, and for that matter, look at what's happening to him on social media right now. The pattern of his behavior and his lack of success should be a warning to him that what he's doing is not smart. You would think that. But the more lawsuits he files, the worse the situation is going to be for him when the court system sees what he's doing. Oh man.
Sorry, it says his power is handlebar mustache. And it's a mere glimpse upon these marvelous whiskers cause fear and disdain within the hearts of any frauditor. Those hands didn't get dirty playing with stuffed animals, punk.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, here's my ultimate. This is the ultimate card. This is the ultimate hero, infinite defense and infinite attack. The most powerful card ever created, invincible, unassailable, most powerful, more powerful than you could possibly imagine, unparalleled vanquisher of stupidity.
And firm believer in a round earth.
That's right. Exactly. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. What were you saying?
It's okay. All I was saying was the situation for Chile with all these lawsuits he's filing is the courts are eventually going to wake up and see a pattern to what he's doing, and they're going to smite him. It happens quite a bit. Um, I think Dog Detective is of the opinion that he's not anywhere close to being termed a vexatious litigant. I think there is a stronger case for that than a lot of people realize. And the reason I say that is YouTube has already stopped him in his tracks for abusing the copyright system.
Right.
So, on top of that, he's got how many protective orders against him? At least one of which is permanent, I think.
Yeah.
Um, so, all I'm saying is, success is not trending in his direction. So, the more of these lawsuits that he files that are found to be uh, frivolous or without merit, they're going to start reversing fines on him. Think about when he attempted to withdraw this suit against uh, Kate and Josh Abrams.
Right.
What happened right before he did that?
What?
So for the very first time, and not soon enough, if you ask me, the court started tossing around the term bad faith attorney's fees.
Okay.
See, up until that point, Chile himself had said that he was filing all these lawsuits specifically to drain people of their money.
Right.
So there was a profit motive in it for him. But the court spun it around and said, "We think we have heard what you've said. And because we think you're doing this for not because you've been harmed, but because you want to intentionally inflict harm on others, you will be held responsible for filing action in bad faith, which means all attorney's fees will be your responsibility." And all of a sudden, the suit got withdrawn.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
See, and here's the thing. He has um, some serious issues. If I mean, obviously, we're all well aware that when you look at his his lawsuits or whatever, it's all nonsense, and the guy doesn't know how to file anything. He thinks because he says he's a constitutional law scholar that all of a sudden makes him an expert in everything with the law, and yet you read his stuff and it's just like, this guy's an idiot. And none of this stuff makes sense. It kind of goes back to the argument that I always make with why these guys always want to represent themselves and refuse to get a lawyer. Because one, they believe that lawyers are crooked or whatever. Well, no,
no, you're right. You just reminded me of something hilarious. Please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, no, it's the whole crooked lawyer thing. But I mean, they think that a defense attorney isn't going to stand up for them and defend them, that the defense attorney is just going to bow down to the state and try to help get them put in jail, not try to keep them out of jail, right?
Yes.
But their whole thing is kind of based on the British Accredited Association, which obviously is BS, and we know that. But also this idea that if you get a lawyer, then what's going to happen is you're going to take these filings, you're going to write this motion, and it's going to be whatever, motion to dismiss on account of I don't like being thrown in jail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you give it to the lawyer and he refuses to hand it to the judge. Now they're going to accuse the lawyer of not doing his job. No, it's because the lawyer isn't going to hand the judge a piece of paper that says stupid nonsense on it.
Yes.
But then they accuse the judge or the lawyer of not doing his job. No, he's doing his job. He's just not stupid enough to do. But that's the thing. And this comes down to the cops, the public servants, the lawyers, all of them. You're public servants. You do what I say because I said it. I hand you a piece of paper and tell you to give it to the judge, and you don't. Then you're not doing your job. I'm your boss. You know.
I've got to say this. So the reason that I'm cracking up so much is,
Mm-hmm.
as you're describing this, I don't know if you subscribe to Old Squishy Gardner's Court Watch.
Oh, I love old Squishy Gardner.
So you can probably guess one. You can probably guess which name I'm about to say.
Uh
Jeremy Shue
oh.
accused his attorney, Stuart Collis, of exactly that because Attorney Collis would not file nonsensical things, and at one point would not file an affidavit of coercion on his own part. And OSG pointed that out as only OSG can. But what you just said is as perfect an encapsulation of situations like that as anyone could ever ask for. And the way that you were describing it was epic. So that's why I was cracking up. It was a
That's great.
complimentary laugh, I promise.
No, yeah, no, absolutely. I get it. Um, yeah, man, it's crazy. And it always goes back to this idea. Like I was just talking on my stream yesterday about how the idea of extortion, right? And
Hmm.
again, this also goes back to the language thing. It's
Hmm.
like if you get pulled over, it's never I got pulled over because I was speeding. It's
Yes.
never I got pulled over because I didn't have license plates. It's
Yes.
always I got pulled over because a cop's trying to steal my no, I'm sorry, I said cop. We're talking about their words. Because a an armed thug decided to steal my money and wants to extort money out of me.
Hmm.
Like the case that I covered yesterday was this guy who got stopped for speeding. He was going 79 and like he posted his whole court case as proof that the courts are corrupt. But the whole time he kept referring to himself as an innocent man being railroaded by the government. But it's
Hmm.
like not once did he ever even begin to try and make the claim that he wasn't speeding. Like, you did it. You're not an innocent man. You were speeding. You got pulled over for speeding. What are you talking about? Oh, I'm an innocent man and they're trying to railroad me. But you were speeding. Ugh.
So I'd like to point out an interesting parallel to that. So not that long ago, I made the statement that uh, with frauditors, there's a parallel with frauditors here. Uh, but with frauditors, they always claim that they were arrested because they were filming.
Never.
And we pointed out correctly that no, it's not because you were filming, it's because of what you were doing while filming or because
Yep.
you were filming. And it's the same with frauditors. I mean, or with soft. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
haven't had any coffee yet. Um, but it's the same with soft. Like they throw out these red herrings, and it's it's always amusing to me. But worse than that, to go back to it's another example of what you described with misappropriating terminology. I saw someone in side chat point out when they're arrested, they're getting kidnapped. No, they're getting
Mm-hmm.
arrested because they broke the law. We actually had some weeks ago. We were talking about. Uh, we were talking about Annapolis audit. Are you familiar with the incident at the polling place that involved him?
Oh, I covered that. I hated that. And
So
yeah, and that became a thing too. Just
yeah,
because when the election just happened, Long Island audits went into a polling place. He went into a polling place. A bunch of them, like polling places, became the hot spot to fraud it for a couple days during the election.
yep. Well, the discussion that we had on Annapolis audit was interesting enough in itself. But what I want to talk about here is the aftermath that was on my Discord that maybe not everybody saw. So this is
Ooh,
what happened. So while we were discussing what happened with Annapolis audit, um, we all broke it down as objectively as we could. The poll worker pushed him, and he tripped and fell into that serrated wall, which is unfortunate, but that's a
right,
distinction from the poll worker pushed him into the wall. One is an accident, the other is intentional.
right.
So And we made that distinction very clearly on the air. Well, after that, there was someone on my Discord who kept insisting that Annapolis Audit was assaulted, and he kept using that term. And I told him that I had a very serious problem with that because, in my mind, he was doing with the word assault what frauditors do with the word tyrant, or what sovsits do with the word traveling. They're making it mean something that it doesn't mean with no basis whatsoever. And it my entire server basically told him to knock it off, and even I told him to knock it off, and it still kept on. So it was unfortunately a time when I did have to take some moderation action. But stuff like that really and truly bothers me.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and they do that all the time, right? Because if somebody's filming you and you say, "Please don't film me," and of course it is, and I always say, like, the terminology that I use is based on the old school con man technique, right? Which is you look for a mark, and
Yep.
once you find your mark, you zero in on them. So they look for people who don't want to be filmed and then focus their camera on them. That's the mark. They found the mark. And if they point a camera at somebody and somebody says, "Please don't film me," so now they're going to film them more because they asked not to be filmed. And then they go to push the camera out of the way. That's assault.
Yeah.
Or when that cop a while ago, there was this famous video that went, in our, for us, viral anyway, where that one lady cop, like, I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was DMA. I don't remember. But he's filming and he's got the camera in front of her face and she just touched his shoulder lightly to kind of, and he's like, "That's assault. That's assault. This lady assaulted me. I want her arrested."
Mm-hmm.
It's like any physical contact at all is going to be assault, no matter what the situation is behind it. Even if it's something simple like that, like, here's the door. I'm going to point you towards the door, right? Oh, you touched me. That's assault. I got you now. And they just, again, redefine everything to fit their false narrative.
And what you just described, it we're touching on so many important topics today, and I'm loving it. I'm wishing I'd had coffee now, but what you just described fits another pattern that we observed, and my viewers pointed this out both on Sunday night and in the comments on that stream afterward. But for a lot of these frauditors and sovsits, frauditors especially, but sovsits too, I really and truly think it's less about the subject matter that they're kicking up dust about and more about a way to assert themselves over someone else. I mean, that's it.
This hit me yesterday. I was thinking, like, I'm starting to believe, and of course, I haven't met every single one of them. I don't know. This is sort of a broad umbrella thing. And I know that saying an absolute about any one group is not necessarily fair. I get that. But in general, it seems like frauditors are, and before I even get into that, when you talk about the connection between the frauditors and sovsits, I have an entire chapter about that in my book, by the way. When you talk about the connection between the two, that's why Schrodinger used to call frauditors sovereign citizens light, because even though they'll say that we're nothing like the sovereign citizens, you hear them in court, their arguments come right out of Mark Stevens' script every time.
Right.
But when they're out there and they're doing this, and they're trying supposedly to prove this point about freedom and the First Amendment and this and that and the other thing, I always say, like, what I like to do sometimes is watch their videos with the sound off, because I don't want to hear their commentary. I just want to see what's actually happening in the video. And then I'll go back and listen to it with the sound down and hear how their commentary doesn't match the content at all, but their fans eat up the narration.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wait a minute, you're in a building, you're filming, and then all of a sudden you're like bothering these people and it's like the narration is, well, they attacked me and they got up in my face, and if they don't want to be on camera, why did they walk up to the camera? They love to say that. Mm-hmm. If they don't want to be on camera, why did they walk up to the camera? Well, why were you pointing the camera at them in the first place, or
Bingo.
because they see some random idiot filming everything, they realize they're going to be in the shot. So they say, hey, will you please make sure that you don't get me in the shot? Right now, that's a violation of their First Amendment right. How dare you talk to me? And when cop watching is a thing, and going to these government buildings and stuff is a thing, but it like that bothers me. I don't like that.
Right.
But when you get people like SGV and Amagansett Press and these other people, KC Camera Boy, Silence Boy, who audit private businesses, that really drives me nuts.
Yes.
Because you're filming just regular citizens. What does that have to do with government transparency on any level? It doesn't.
Let me show you something that you might appreciate then, because what you just described sounds like it's a perfect corollary. Um, hold on. So see what you think of this. I'm sharing my screen here. So I don't know if you've ever seen any of our "What's Up with That" episodes, but one of
Yeah.
the things that we do is we take a look at frauditor behaviors through four criteria, if you will, like whether what they're doing is consistent with everyday people, if it passes the reasonable test. Um, I initially framed it as situations with arrests, but for situations involving unhappy endings, could the protagonist, the frauditor, have avoided the outcome by altering their behavior? What disorders or mental illnesses their behaviors might indicate? Because if we're honest, there are symptoms there for a lot of these people. And four, if we think what we're seeing is just a person's genuine personality, or if we think they're playing it up for the cameras. And what you just described is behavior that, by our first criteria, fails. There's no one that I know of just walks into a private business or a public building, just that's there for legitimate business, holding a camera or a body cam. I mean,
Right.
I have my cell phone, and I might be scrolling Facebook or Instagram while I'm waiting, but that's about it. Um, and when, like you said, when they get arrested or whatnot, they always say it's a corrupt system. You, the police officer, are a tyrant. Blah 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 blah. No, the officer is doing what they have to, and basically, if the frauditor had not been the aggressor, there would be no unfortunate outcome. See
Yep.
also Georgia transparency. Um, we've talked about narcissistic personality disorder on my channel several times, and that seems to be what a lot of these people have. I've heard people say that people like Afro Man come across as incels. I think that's a good argument as well.
Yeah.
Um, so they're people like Big Wes audits that were going to military bases and trying to film their ACPs. That is the textbook definition of dumb, but he did it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and then this last one, it differs from one to the other. I do think some people exaggerate their reactions for the camera, but for people like Broken System, Broken Trust, um, Denver Metro Audits, Afro Man, certainly, I think we're seeing their genuine personality, and it's very unfortunate, I think, but I just thought that might be an interesting addition to what you were talking about. I'm sorry.
No, it is. It absolutely is, and I've looked at that before, and I do love that. The definition of number four would be Josh Abrams. He specifically said straight out on several occasions that he's playing a character when he's auditing.
Yeah.
So that's he's just playing it up because he's trying to get his YouTube stuff. He don't care. Um, but yeah, that's exactly right, and that's cool that you brought that up. I like that. Like I said, I've looked at that before, so that is I think that's great. The the thing that I was getting at earlier too is that to a certain extent, I think that a lot of these guys are we're the bullies that picked on us when we were kids. What happened to them when they grew up? Well, they became frauditors.
Yes. Oh dear Lord, yes.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's because they are, I mean, they are bullies. I mean, look at SGV News. It's almost to the point where, I mean, I always say this, but I know it's not literally true,
Mhm.
but it is almost literally to the point where his entire life is based on going around pepper spraying people on the street for fun and filming himself doing it.
Oh, did you see what happened when his channel got demonetized?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't
That
it
was
glorious?
great. It was. It was.
Yes.
And the thing that I loved about that, and I covered it on here too, is that so he does that thing where he pepper sprays that girl, gets arrested, his channel gets demonetized, and then in between all that, he's up there e-begging for money. This
Mhm.
is the guy who brags all the time about how he makes so much more money than all the cops and all the judges and everybody, and he makes so much money on YouTube. And then he gets one little piece of trouble, and all of a sudden he's e-begging. And I had somebody in my chat yesterday saying, "Well, what's the difference between those idiots asking for money and you guys asking for money?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not sitting here spending all day, every day bragging about how much money I make. And then the first time I get in a little bit of trouble for being stupid, instead of being responsible for my own actions, I'm going to beg my fans to pay my bail because no, it's different than me saying, hey, if you like my content and you want to support the channel, you could go ahead and like drop a super chat or something. Like that's not the same on any level.
Well, look at the other side of it too. Let's assume I don't buy for a second that he makes as much as he says he does, just because I've seen his social blade. But
Right.
let's say, for the sake of argument, that he does make. Let's just say 250,000 a year, for the sake of argument. Let's say that he does make that much per year. Now, let's ask the question: but at what cost?
Right.
But at what cost? Think about that man's criminal record. Forget that. Think about his arrest record.
Yeah.
I I'm just gonna share my own opinion here, but my personal opinion is I would not want to have that kind of criminal and arrest history, even if it meant that kind of money, because to me it's not worth it. And I say that
Right.
as someone that since 2 weeks after I got out of college, I have held jobs that required me to pass extensive background checks. So I have no arrests. There is in fact nothing worse in my history than some speeding tickets, because let's be honest, I have a foot that's made of lead. Um, and I admit that shamelessly. Um,
Well, here's the thing, though, just real quick,
yeah,
because
yeah,
um, being a human that lives on Earth, things happen, right?
yes,
But it isn't whether or not you have a criminal record. Chili de Castro loves to bring up Team Skeptic's criminal record, but it's like it's not whether or not something happened in your life; it's whether or not you took responsibility and acted like
yes,
an adult
yes.
instead of saying, "Oh, I got pulled over, so I'm going to dedicate the rest of my life to filming the police and giving them a hard time because I can't handle being taking responsibility for my own actions."
Right, 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 right. And the point that I was making wasn't that people can't make mistakes, but the distinction is, to go back to the analogy with the parking tickets earlier. Most people that I know that have run-ins with law enforcement learn from those mistakes and work to, be productive members of society. The corollary to that is when you look at frauditors and sovsits. I like to pick on Georgia Transparency, so I'm going to pick on him, but they don't learn. They double down and they just get nastier and nastier and nastier. And
Yep.
that's the difference.
Oh yeah, big time. Um, yeah,
I'd like to address a comment that I saw in the side chat again, if I may.
sure, sure.
Not 50 at 822 made the comment that the frauditors are always telling government employees that they have to create their own privacy. Aren't they creating privacy by kicking the frauditors out of the building? Not only are they doing that, they're creating a more pleasant environment for all involved. But that to go back to what you said, I want to link this comment to what you said earlier, Hezekiah, about goalposts that move. So you have frauditors that go into these places like government offices. They'll try to film where everybody's private information is being handled. They'll claim, well, you have to create privacy, but the second that someone does create privacy, they'll start screaming, no, that's unconstitutional.
Yep.
So not 50's comment reminded me of that. And it's just such a perfect parallel to what you said earlier. I wanted to point that out. I'll shut up now.
Well, no, that's perfectly. I mean, that's exactly right. They're constantly doing that. I mean, that's a huge thing with these guys, right? And my big argument is when they ask you to stop filming, that is their attempt to create their own privacy. And I actually saw a video once with Craig from CH&TY Audits where
Oh,
he actually told the people in the building, well, if you want to keep that stuff private, you have to build a wall. So you want to complain and complain and complain about people wasting taxpayer dollars, but then you want to sit here and have them waste more taxpayer dollars building a wall just because some random idiot might show up with a camera someday. But real quick, because I see Rogue Nations here, and I wanted to talk to him because I was on his panel last week and he booted me. Listen, Rogue, what I wanted to say to you on your panel there that I never got a chance to say because you kicked me out, which is funny because you kicked me out for spazzing, but I thought that's what you loved about me was when I spaz out. That's every time you come in here, you talk about it. So let me tell you something, Rogue. One of the things you were doing on that stream that really bothered, I'm going to put myself on camera for this one because I want them to look at my face when I say this. One of the things
go
you were
full
saying.
screen. Go full screen too. Go full
Right.
screen too.
Where is it? Dagnabbit.
It
How
should
do
be
I?
the left.
I don't want to. Well,
It
no,
should
yeah, I
be
don't
the
want to
left.
accidentally boot you. Okay, I got it.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
There
All
you
right,
go.
Rogue. Listen, what I wanted to talk to you about on that stream was you were talking about how if there was a law that was on the table that they're trying to pass to make it so that they can stop you guys from frauditing, right? And you're talking about, well, if they pass that law, then we could just go ahead and don't boot them yet because I want them to hear this. Um, they want you to they want to pass this law and you're saying, well, if they do, then that's free money and we should all get together and file lawsuits against them and take all this free money. It's great. But do you understand, because you love to complain about wasting taxpayer dollars, that if you file a lawsuit against the city and win the suit, that money is going to come out of the taxpayer dollars? I don't pay taxes to put into your pocket. Okay. So when you go on your stream saying that your goal is to file a lawsuit against the city if they pass this law, what you're saying is your goal is to steal my tax dollars. You want to steal our money. If you want to use the tax dollar thing as a big excuse, then you filing lawsuits against the state are you stealing tax dollars. So you could shut up about that. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say to you, but you booted me because it's funny. Like I said, every time you come in here and I spaz out, you're like, oh, Hezokuai spaz it out again. And then I come on your channel and I do that, and then you boot me. So whatever. Have fun. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that off my chest that I haven't seen you since then. So when I saw you pop up, I wanted to say that now. All right, I'm done with my rant.
We've got a request from the side chat to show a clip of Kick doing his thing from Sunday night. I know you did that on Monday, but if
I
people
don't
are
mind
asking to
showing it
see it,
again. It's brilliant. And since you're here, I don't mind showing it if you
okay.
don't mind me. All right, here, let me pull that up real quick. Um, I should have it right here in my history because I was just watching it. I love that. I've watched it like 4 times because it's freaking brilliant.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, for everyone's consideration, another example of what Hezekiah was just describing with these people costing taxpayers money, consider what happened to bring Annapolis audits back up. Consider what happened when he went to the city hall there where he lives. First, the mayor had to cancel his open door policy, I think. But for certain, City Hall upgraded its security procedures after his visit. And he made the news because of that, not in a good way. So that's what these people are doing. They're creating the very situation that they purport to fear. It's what KFAR would call intellectual dishonesty at its finest. I mean, that part that displays to me with perfect clarity that for these people, it's not about the First Amendment. It's not about what they believe. It's not about this, that, or the other. The only thing that it's about is they want to have a power trip. And think about how often you see these guys confronted by government workers and employees at these businesses they harass. And they say, well, I'd like to just be able to go around and do what I want to do. Like,
Yep.
no, it doesn't work that way.
No, that's it. They do. They literally want to just do whatever, and it almost seems like, well, for some of them, it is their argument, but the idea that like I should be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, because this is a free country, and it's like, and I always like to bring up the whole Daryl Brooks thing, not, and again, whether or not he literally believes in the sovereign citizen stuff or not, the point is that I always use the example that when you guys make these quote unquote legal arguments about being allowed to do this because it's a free country and do that because it's a free country, if you break it down logically, what you're saying basically is that everything should just be legal. Because if every law doesn't apply because you disagree with it, then that would include any other laws, which would be murder or rape or whatever. And they're like, well, if there's no injured party, okay. So they'll use the excuse, well, if you murder someone, that's different because there's an injured party. But that's why when you hear Daryl Brooks argue in court, well, the state can't prosecute me. Again, if you take their legal argument, then, oh, but if there's an injured party, it's different. Yeah, but then what about the quote unquote jurisdiction? What about, it's like all these different things, if you put them together, they don't make sense because it ultimately equals anarchy.
What you're describing that's Craig of CH&TY Audits, but that's also Breaking the Flaw, who is in
Yes.
serious trouble right now for a couple of different things. And all I can say is he's one of these anarchist cracks. It is glorious to me to see him getting his just desserts.
Yes. Love it. So anyway, we had a request for this, and for those of you who didn't see it, this is great stuff. If you have seen it before, it's worth watching again because it's brilliant. In about a minute, Kick's going to start ripping into this kid, and it is awesome. It's glorious.
To have you with us. I didn't interrupt the folks that were speaking, but I do want to welcome you and thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Hi, Afro. I'm Kick. Nice
What's
to
up,
meet you.
man?
Do you mind if I call you Afro, or is there
Nah, I
another
don't
name
give
that
a
you would
shit.
prefer? Okay. So I've been listening along in the chat, and okay, I was a little charged. It was getting a little heated earlier, and
I
as you can
apologize
tell,
for that, but I just don't like the shit that's said.
I understand. Now, as you can tell, I tend to trend on the opposite of what you believe.
And that's totally fine.
Okay. And I try to take as neutral of a stance as I can when I talk to other people. So hopefully we can have some form of good conversation, if you don't mind.
For sure.
All right, cool. So the first question that I have is this. Based on what you were saying, where you were, let's call it redressing the individuals at the county clerk's office, is it not their policy that you cannot film when you enter that building?
No.
Okay. And where do you have a form of documentation so that way I can confirm that?
Just go. You don't need a form of documentation to know that you can film in a public building.
Oh, well, hold on. That depends, because there will be judges who can make those decisions.
No, because judges can't make a policy trumping the Constitution.
Actually, they can, and it doesn't necessarily trump
Actually,
the
there's a
Constitution.
case just recently that was won in federal court because there was a man that went into a federal court, and it was
Which
an
case?
auditor too, and he even filmed
Which
his.
case?
I can't remember. It was Good Citizen News, I think, and he was even live streamed his trial, and this was going into a federal courthouse, and they even stated that
Because he requested permission.
that he may be pushing the limits by recording in a federal courthouse, but it was not against the law to even record in a federal courthouse.
Okay, so let's stop there.
Real quick, I wanted to address that because I don't know if you were here earlier when I covered that. I actually watched that trial and showed part of it yesterday. I found the trial he's talking about, and Kick's completely right in what he's about to say, but he's talking about Direct D's trial, and Afro Man isn't talking about that. He's talking about a different trial. So I actually went back and watched the trial he's talking about, and what's hilarious is, and this is amazing, and like I said, I showed it on my stream yesterday. So what happens is, this Good Citizen News is in court, and he has a lawyer, by the way. Okay,
a rare glimpse of sensibility.
Right. The video is titled in all caps, big bold letters, "We won in court."
No.
So I'm listening to this whole trial, just waiting for the judge to say, "You're right, you win, case dismissed," or whatever it is, right? So what is the big win that this kid is pointing to as proof that they're allowed to film in public?
What indeed?
Judge says, I'm going to move this to the grand jury and let them decide. And what we're going to do is we're going to have those people actually go to the building filming, but without the attitude, and see how they're treated. That's it. That's what they're calling this big victory. The fact that the judge moved it to a grand jury.
That's actually a bad thing for Good Citizen News, because once he sees that if people aren't being provocative, that people still may be uncomfortable, but they won't get the extreme reactions. Once he sees that, and once the jury sees that, he's toast. And also, that reminds me, so on the subject of people who distort reality, something that I learned after we did this stream on Sunday, Afro Man indicated on stream that he had never been convicted, right? He claimed that he had never been found guilty of anything. Well, that is false, and that is demonstrably false. And here's how I know. The night of that stream, Dummy Kruger sent me an advance copy of the video he premiered yesterday about Afro Man's trial, in which he was found guilty of 2 charges. So by the time we did that stream, Afro Man had been convicted. It was fairly minor charges when it's all said and done, but a conviction is a conviction. But he said, "No, it's never happened to me." To quote Maury Povich, the lie detector test determined that was a lie.
Well, you know what? Yeah.
I was just going to say, so you can't take anything that these people say at face value. Broken System, Broken Trust tried that the other day. He put out a poll that was asking, well, if someone calls something a total fabrication, is that correct or not? And my answer to that was, well, if they're talking about something you said, then the answer is yes. It is justified. And he was like, well, he played a clip from one of Kafar's streams from like months and months and months ago. And I said, you have no standing here. That was months ago. Nobody remembers what the conversation and context were. So for you to bring this up now it lacks credibility. So there you go.
Right. Well, speaking of Broken System, Broken Trust, the famous case that he loves to point to, I listened to it and dissected it back in the day when he first posted it, where he's always saying, like, this case proves that we're right about the jurisdiction argument. I went back and listened to it again and again and again. And what the judge actually said, but Broken System is talking over him while he says it. So it's hard to spot in the clip, which is why I had to watch it several times. What the judge actually says is, yes, I agree with you with jurisdiction as far as the physical location. But he always cuts out the as far as physical location part, right? It's like the Poster 7 people that cut out the second half of the paragraph. Whatever.
Makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah. But so here, let's get back into this because we didn't even get to the good part yet. Oh boy, oh boy.
I think who it is that you're referring to is Direct D. Direct D was actually in court.
No, it wasn't him.
It wasn't Direct D? Because he did something similar, and that courthouse allowed him to film, which many courthouses will have different policies which will allow to film. So if you follow, let's say, our Nevada judges, okay, in Nevada, you have to file a motion with the court that states your intention in order to film in the court. Okay.
In the
And
courtroom or in the courthouse?
in the courtroom and the courthouse, and that you have to be a media agency that is filming with the intent of a neutral stance, not from an individual level where it can be commercialized. Okay. So if
See, it doesn't say any of that in the First Amendment, though. We've got the
it
free
may
press.
not say it in the First Amendment, but the 10th
Exactly.
Amendment
So
allows the states to make their own laws, policies, statutes, and codes.
Not to trump another amendment.
It's not to trump another amendment.
It
And
is.
that's the
trumping
problem.
First Amendment.
Where's the case law that states that it trumps another amendment, so that way all the states are wrong?
How many auditors have won in court for filming in public?
It's not about filming in public, though, Afro Man. You're jumping the gun on the conversation. Let's stick to what we're talking about.
I'm trying to figure out why these
You're
people,
stepping. Hold on.
I know. Hold on. I'm going to go way back to the beginning now. Why do these people who initiate the conflict, if we go in here and we're not doing nothing wrong with the camera, why are these people so afraid and call the cops and have these auditors arrested for just standing?
Why do you assume that it is fear and it is not policy based?
Because every single time
they always say
they're in fear. Because this is the statements the stupid individuals make.
Do you have an exact specific incident that I can refer to
right now?
Do you have an exact specific incident that I can refer to?
I cannot release that right now.
If you can't release that information, then I'm going to take it for what it is and state that I can neither confirm nor deny its existence.
So that's why I already said at the way beginning that I don't even like being on panels like this.
I can't. All I'm telling you is that I can't confirm or deny because I need information that can show one way or another. This is about the facts that can be proven. Okay. And that's the way that a real attorney is going to look at something. Okay.
Yep.
So I'm looking at this as what can be proven. And what I can prove is that in the state of Nevada, you have to have a motion to film inside the courthouse or the courtroom. Okay. So based on that, and based on where you're visiting and based on your beliefs only, not necessarily the policies that are written for that location.
Policy doesn't trump the Constitution. That's what you don't understand.
You believe that it trumps the Constitution, but what you fail to have is anything that states that your belief is legitimate in the eyes of the law.
The First Amendment's not belief. It's called the First Amendment.
Okay. You're generalizing here. This is the problem. Okay?
Just because I believe in the
You're
First
going with
Amendment
a global viewpoint. Hold on. You're going with a global viewpoint on something that is actually granular. Okay. Your First Amendment rights.
Right in
here.
The sand.
Let me give you a quick. Let me give you a First Amendment. Let's read it together. Okay. Let's read it together.
Man.
So from the Constitution, from the White House, whitehouse.gov, the First Amendment provides that Congress make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting its free exercise. It protects freedom of speech, the press, assembly, and the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Okay. Now that you would agree that that is the First Amendment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. So we have a foundation. That's good. Now, we're not talking about religion, so we're going to step past that portion. The portion that you're talking about is that it protects the freedom of speech, press, assembly, and the right to petition the government for a redress of grievance. Okay. The first thing, let's talk about speech. You're right. You can essentially say whatever you want. Okay. However, time, place, and manner, as Mark the sarcastic law student has on there, can come into effect, especially when it deals with assembly. There are multiple Supreme Courts, specifically one which had to deal with a large grouping of African Americans in the state of New York who were limited on where they could exhibit their First Amendment right in an area that was hard for them to access. And so it was found to be unconstitutional that they would only be allowed their freedom of assembly and speech in that location because it removed their ability to access. So time, place, and manner would not have been respected. Okay. Now, where you are located in a clerk's office, okay, is not a location with which you have a right to assembly. You have a right to attend if you are required to be
public
there.
office. That's not a county attorney's office. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about a clerk's office.
Yeah, no, I haven't been in any clerk's offices.
So you're talking about a county attorney's offices where you went and made those statements to those women.
Yeah, right.
Okay,
outside.
great.
It's
So
David.
you're in.
David, it's
Okay.
Kid.
I'm in the office. I'm literally standing in public.
All right. So you are there at the county attorney's office, which includes the building and the parking lot. Okay. Which includes the sidewalk within the bounds of said parking lot as what is listed on the property when you look at the actual, what's the word? The survey for the land. Okay. That is all part of that location. That is not an area that is allowed for freedom of assembly. And it's not just because they want to remove your First Amendment rights. Assembly does not have a purpose at that location for that attorney's office. You have a right to attend that location should you have business in that location.
For this to make sense, though, you have to understand that every time I went there for my court case and for business reasons.
You
I didn't
went
go
because
there
you had the
just
purpose to
stand
attend
there and assemble and just stand there for shits and giggles.
I understand. I'm just walking through the process of the First Amendment, so that way I can explain it and get it to this proper location. Okay. So now that you understand that this is not about assembly, you are not necessarily redressing grievances because you are there for a business purpose, which is actually being there for court purposes. Okay. So that's not a redress of grievance. It is a filing location for you to utilize with the city attorney. Your freedom of speech does not necessarily need to be protected there because although it is accessible by the public, it does not make it a public fora for your First Amendment free speech under the time, place, and manner restrictions of the First Amendment, which have been issued by the Supreme Court, because those fall under assembly, not under individual business.
So you would say that's entrapment then, because they denied service.
You are entrapping them.
Nope. Hold on. Like I've already told you, my mouth, I don't say anything rude to anybody
Here we
until
go.
they give me a reason. No, stop. I don't say nothing rude to anybody. I'm a very
Don't say
nice
nothing is a double
person.
negative.
Stop.
Yeah, stop saying that.
No, you stop. Speak English.
Nope, I'm done.
Speak English, you uneducated, smooth-brained koala.
This is why I can't deal with this.
No, it's because you don't want to understand the realism
You don't understand
of the
that
world.
I go there and these dumb bitches
You broke their policy, Afro Man.
Ow. By them denying service.
By you showing up with the camera, your First Amendment right is not protected.
Nothing in that fucking court. I don't live in Nevada. Look up the Iowa.
It's not about Nevada. It's about where you went for the city's attorney's office. You're too busy focusing on everything in the grand scheme instead of the granularity of your lack of education and knowledge in this situation.
Dude, go sit on a thumb.
Oh my God. You're just pissed because he totally got you. Totally got you.
What's funny is that I'm educated in criminal justice and you're just a child pretending to be a man.
I should go to law school to be a civil rights.
Well, if that's what you want to do, then fucking do it and quit pretending.
Shut the fuck up.
You're a great pretender, Afro Man. What's wrong, my guy?
Why
are you so mad about getting caught, my guy?
Getting caught?
Why does it upset you that you can't call women cunts and not get away with it, my guy? Why do you have to be such a child to say nasty names to women because you can't get your way, my guy? Did mom and dad not punish you enough, my guy? Did they not spank you the way that you needed, my guy? I mean, Jesus Christ, if you were 17 when you got your first charges, that was just last year. You haven't grown up, my guy. No wonder you don't have a job. No wonder you don't have an education.
And the guy
Why would you put yourself in a position to be a criminal to begin with?
Yeah.
You do nothing but make poor decisions. You rage quit my guy. Rage quit my guy.
I love you so much. I love you so much.
Bye-bye, Afro Boy.
All right, that was great stuff. Great stuff. I love that.
That was epic.
Yeah.
So a point was made, I think, that I'm sorry, every time I see that it makes me laugh. But there is a valid point there that might be worth discussing, and that is you hear these frauditors say, I'm here to conduct business when they go someplace to film, right?
Right.
I have a question. In what building or business, is there explicitly to be filmed? At what place is that considered the business of the place?
It's not.
Exactly. Exactly.
And like I use the example especially because now these guys are doing private businesses and stuff. It's like they don't seem to comprehend, or they do. And this is, first of all, before I even get into that, this is one of my biggest beefs with these idiots. Is in general, there's a lot of different types, but they basically break down into two categories. You got your idiots who are just doing it because, like, one of them famously said on an interview with Frauditor Troll, I was on YouTube. I saw these videos of these people basically being assholes and getting paid to do it. I'm an asshole, so I figure, hey, I'll go out there and do it so I can make some money too. And then you got people on the other side are the ones who actually do believe in this. And those are the ones that are even more dangerous to me because they'll fight, literally physically fight for their nonsensical beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But what ends up happening is you get someone like Afro Boy, and like just now, like with the kick saying, "What did your parents didn't punish you?" And I said this earlier. That's a big part of Afro Boy's problem is because his dad supports him doing this. He has his dad on some of his videos telling him, "Yeah, you go out there and you teach those nasty pigs a lesson, boy." Like my dad would be beating me with a stick if I was acting like that.
I think that a better word for his dad would be less a supporter and more, this is a term of art, but I use it with purpose. He is not a supporter, he is an accomplice.
Ah, yes. I love that. That's a great way to say it.
I don't use terms of art lightly, but having seen some of his and his dad's misadventures, I think it's justified.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. That's awesome.
That sounded like a very evil laugh. I didn't mean for that.
No, that was great. I loved it. Oh man. Yeah, and there you go. That's a perfect example. It's like these guys are, and it's so hard to say because earlier we were talking about like mental disorders or whatever that would cause them to act this way. It also seems to me like to a certain extent that there's some sort of maybe some sort of schizophrenia involved as well because so many of them are so paranoid. We had Rogue Nation in here earlier, and I've talked to him a bunch of times, and one of the things that he'll say all the time is, "Well, you don't understand. If I go in and I request a FOIA, I have to film it because if I don't, then they're going to say that I never put in the request." Like,
it's the victim complex. I've heard about Afro Man specifically. I've heard professional victim after his performance the other night, but it applies to all of them, and it's mind-boggling to me. They immediately think that because they get convicted of a crime, which they recorded themselves doing, that the system is rigged and there's corruption. And it's like, no, the system works the way it's supposed to. You just effed up. But, I could go on about that one, but I won't.
Well, I mean, that's pretty standard because that even goes back to what I was saying earlier, right? Like, you get pulled over for speeding. You're not guilty of speeding. They're guilty of trying to extort money from you, right? It's always the system's corrupt and evil, and just like you said, because they actually do these things, they get caught doing them. So it's not I'm taking responsibility for my actions and what I did. I'm going to blame the government for railroading me. Like, no.
What about that? What about that Sopsit family? I think it's up in Oregon. That guy with the curly red hair looks like an evil version of Linus Sebastian. You know who I'm talking about?
What happened? What was the?
So this family, I want to say the guy drove a minivan, but I could be wrong. KFAR has covered him, and so has Schrodinger, I think. But he's a Sopsit that he traveled without a license. And was pulled over by the police and told with a finger in his face, do not drive again. within a half an hour, he was pulled over again, and the cop was like, "All right, I warned you, you're going this time." And like, Kfar could tell you better than I can who he is, because Kfar's covered him a couple of times. But there, I'm pretty sure that those are not the only two arrests those people have.
Oh yeah. Well, that kind of goes back again to the thing I was covering yesterday. I don't remember the name of the frauditor. It was something like who cares? They don't deserve the credit anyway. But so this idiot got pulled over for speeding, and he posted the whole video of him speeding and the trial and everything, trying to show how corrupt the cops are because they busted him for speeding. But he kept going back to the way he edited the video to take these clips. And there was one in particular clip where this cop is talking to another cop because he got the body cam footage with this FOIA. And the cop says to another cop, "Man, I've been waiting for this day." And he just keeps repeating that. "Oh, I've been waiting for this day. I've been waiting for this day. I've been waiting for this day." And on one hand, we don't know what he was talking about because he took that line completely out of context. But even if he was talking about that, and I actually have done a little bit more digging since I covered the video yesterday and saw that this is true. This is a guy who's a sovereign citizen. He's got the private property plate on his car. He's constantly getting pulled over by the cops. So when he did something that was actually an arrestable offense,
yes,
I could see the cop saying, "I've been waiting for this day," because he probably pulled the guy over 152 times and couldn't do nothing except write him a ticket.
Yep.
It's like, I've been waiting for the day that I could maybe hopefully teach this guy a lesson.
So not to give attention where it's not due, but there's been a dialogue going on between David Perillo and several others out in the chat, and there's a couple of legitimate comments that I think we might ought to discuss. One of which just popped up at 9:01. Quote, "There is virtually zero personal business in a city hall. It's all public record." Yes and no. Every city hall is different. Some of them consolidate different functions within city hall. So I will say, if there are any functions where an individual's personal information, their personally identifiable information, their PII as we call it, is being handled and is being openly displayed, then that is a reasonable restriction on filming. And also, as we mentioned earlier, City Hall is not there just for filming. Like, you go there to conduct certain business. Filming is not your business. David himself made a comment earlier about the Supreme Court has ruled again and again that public employees can be filmed. I think it's fair to say that people don't necessarily have an issue being filmed in the course of their duties. That's not where the problem comes in. Where the problem comes in is when people like, I'm just going to name drop a couple that I've seen in recent history do dumb things, but when you see people like Audit Them go in and behave in an obnoxious and provocative manner, when you see people going to these places, and I forget who it was, but someone was saying earlier that they were going to go to the homes of female employees. That's creepy. When you see people doing things like that, it can set people on edge when you come in and you're behaving strangely, because things like that have happened. And it goes right back to those 4 criteria that Hezekiah and I looked at earlier. Yep. Normal people don't do that. So it's a law of averages. And when you're so far away from average normal behavior, if you get extra attention, you have no one to blame but yourself.
Yep.
I'll step off now, but that was what I wanted to say.
No, yeah, that's a great point. I like that. Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I like to say all the time with these guys is, you walk into a building and you're filming, and this is part of their whole shtick too. This is one of the issues with them, because like they love to say things like, even Afro Man a minute ago was saying, well, I don't say anything until they say something to me, right? And they always like to use these excuses like, well, I wasn't harassing them, they were harassing me, and turn it all around and flip it. But I would love to see someone go into a place and like say, okay, they walk into a building and there's a lady working there, right, behind the counter, and she says, oh, hey, I don't like being filmed, please don't film me, or why are you filming me, right? If they were a normal human, then they said, like, because they love to use excuses, like, for example, especially if it's like a really old building, oh, well, I really like this architecture, I wanted to get some footage of it, right? So why don't you say that? And then when they say, oh, well, you don't have to film me to film the walls or whatever, and say, oh, okay, you're right, I'm sorry, like, it's never ever, hey, you're filming, you're going to jail. It's always, if they say, please don't film me, or why are you filming, especially, they refuse to answer that question. They will never answer that question. So there you go. That's you going out of your way, because how many of them would be allowed to film if they would just simply explain, oh, well, I'm just here filming. Because nowadays you can't say I'm here doing a First Amendment audit, because if they know what that means, they're immediately going to be like, oh, great, another asshole, right?
Yep.
But if you're like, oh, well, I'm just here because I wanted to get some footage of the building and I thought it'd be great, or I wanted to document my interaction because I'm going to get these forms and blah, 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 whatever. But if you don't want me to film you specifically, I'll turn my camera away. How many times, if they said or did that, would it not end with them getting arrested, right? Everything would be fine. When you talk about going to City Hall for a specific purpose, I always like to use this as an example because I try to bring it back to real life as often as I can. I have, in Wisconsin, I have both a teaching license and a bartender's license, right? For both, I had to go to City Hall. So I've been there a bunch of times doing that. And that's the thing. If I walked in there to get my teaching license, then I walk up to the secretary. I ask her for the office that I need to go in. She tells me where to go. I go there. I show them my ID. They give me my license. Like, that's my business. That's my purpose for being in the building. Going in there just to film randomly and tell people I'm going to film you whether you like it or not, that's not handling the business the building was designed for.
Yes.
Yes. It's like, I was there for this is a public building, I can do what I want. No, it's a public building that was designed for a specific purpose. If you're not here for that purpose, why are you here? And I always love to tell these idiots, I love to tell them, look, when you go into a building and you're doing this, quote unquote story, right? And then if you get stopped by the cops, you're going to complain and hoop and holler about, well, why are you stopping me? I'm just working on a story, which is a lie in and of itself, because you talking to the cops is the story, right?
Yep.
But it's go ahead.
There's another couple of comments from our friend Mr. Perillo. So I want to correct David. I'm going to correct you publicly, since you chose to make your
real quick. B2. I'm sorry. I want to go refill my coffee, so you keep going. But just do you mind just kind of taking over for a minute while I'm doing that?
I can do that.
All right, here you go, buddy.
I can do that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Perillo, I'm going to correct you publicly because you chose to make statements publicly. So, yes, I did say that you can film. What I said was you can film public employees in the course of their duties during your interaction. That's what I said. How can I put this? Going to a building just to watch public employees in the course of their duties, as you say, that is the definition of loitering, because you're not there to conduct any legitimate business. So, as an example, since I see a lot of frauditors doing this, I'm going to use the DMV example. But if you go to a DMV, the purpose of that facility is to conduct business related to the division of motor vehicles. You need a license, whatever. You're there to work DMV processes. If you're there to film public employees, you're not there for anything related to the business of the facility, and therefore you are loitering. Now, A lot of people, a lot of law enforcement won't take it to that level unless you're being creepy. But they absolutely have the right to say that someone is loitering if all they're doing is sticking cameras in people's faces. And I'm going to be honest. If I'm there as a customer, a patron, I don't want some random person shoving a camera in my face because I'm not there for that. That's not my business. And if I'm up at the counter and I'm showing my license to them or whatever, I don't want that to get filmed. But frauditors will film that stuff and say, let's expose this guy's information. That's why you're starting to see people kind of clamping down on where these frauditors can and can't be. And I think they're absolutely right to. So, to say that simply to watch public employees in the course of their duties is legitimate business anywhere is false. It is demonstrably false. And that is exactly as News Now Enemy is saying. There's no legitimate purpose. David Perillo, that is false. If you look back at the What's Up with That episode that I did on Annapolis Audit, or on not Annapolis Audit, on Denver Metro Audits, I beg your pardon, he was absolutely up close to the area where business was being conducted and people's personal information could have been recorded. And the manager told him that. So you say that they stay away from citizens at the counter. I have video evidence that says otherwise. So either you're wrong, either you're mistaken, or you are lying. So there you go. Captain Happy at 912 points out, what's the difference between my camera and the cameras on the wall? The wall cameras aren't being broadcast live to the internet. There's another key difference. The security cameras at government buildings and private businesses and whatnot will provide an unbroken, unedited record of what happened. But look at what happens when, frauditors hear something that they don't like. They edit it out. What happens when they get arrested? The video's cut off abruptly. Footage from frauditor cameras. What's going on, Hezokuai? I was addressing Captain Happy's comment from 912, describing the difference between frauditor cameras and security cameras. The point being, security cameras provide an unbroken, unedited narrative, whereas frauditor cameras are subject to manipulation.
Hey, B2, some people are requesting, could you drop a link to your channel in there?
I will try. I don't know.
I mean, I can. It's not a big deal.
It doesn't look like I have a wrench, so if I don't think that I can, but if you could.
Wait, you don't have a wrench? What the hell?
I do not have a wrench.
How the hell is that even possible? I went back like when I first started my channel and tried to wrench everybody that was, here you go. I think somebody else already dropped it too. Yeah, News Now Enemy dropped it.
Oh, thanks, News Now.
Yeah.
I went ahead and dropped it anyway because I do what people ask me to do.
Yes. Like show ID.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, getting onto that point with the whole thing with the body cams or their cameras versus the security cameras, I hate when they say that. That drives me nuts because it's like, damn well there's a difference and you're just playing it up, to try and build your false narrative some more. It's crap. Mm-hmm.
Well, and frauditors already do exactly what I kind of see one of your members in chat, David Perillo, doing.
Yeah.
They'll take selected parts of the truth and omit the rest to try to fit their narrative. On a recent episode of What's Up With That, people were pleading with us to bring up like 10th Amendment and whatnot that all of these sovsits and frauditors overlook. And it's like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, absolutely. And, they'll go off and off and off on this nonsense. But the problem is, and this is like what happened with Afro Man on your thing we were just looking at, is that even if you do bring up the 10th Amendment, they'll say, well, yeah, but the state can't pass a law that overrides the Constitution. But who are you to decide if that law overrides? Just because you say it overrides the Constitution doesn't mean it does.
Yes. Yes.
Like anything that doesn't go in line with what they think is wrong. Well, I think it should be legal to drive without a license. Okay, but it isn't.
So, you just reminded me of something else. So back in April, I did an episode of my podcast with Keeping It Criminal, Blue Bacon, and KFAR, and we did a follow-up that had Paul Carroll. And between the two, we talked about how frauditors and sovsits, to varying degrees, will look at laws and they'll say, well, it shouldn't be that complicated. And Blue Bacon made the point that, and therefore it isn't. And that, exactly as you just described, that is not how it works. They like to try to practice law roadside when they get pulled over.
Yeah.
And we need that meme of those two senior citizens. That's not how it works. That's not how any of that works.
Yep. Exactly. And this well, first of all, real quick, I wanted to address, because David was saying that it's not fair that we put all auditors in the same basket or under the same umbrella. Let me tell you right now, and I've said this before, so he's here every day. He should already know better by now. There's a reason why I use the word frauditors. I'm not talking about auditors. I'm talking about frauditors. Mm-hmm. That's why I call them that. Auditors don't bother me. Frauditors do.
Yes.
I mean, that's it. What else? Like you said, it doesn't have to be complicated. It's very simple.
Well, they try to inject nuance where it doesn't belong.
Yeah, but they ignore nuance where it does belong.
Exactly.
Yep. Always twisting everything you say and building false narratives and having content that the narrative never matches the content, and adding narration or editing the video to make it look like they're just being attacked. And like with Rogue, when he comes in here all the time, I always talk about like, okay, so, and he still has never offered anywhere near a decent explanation. In fact, here, let me tell you a couple of the things that he said on here, because you might find some of this stuff fascinating. First of all, Rogue Nation claims that his family is so big and so wealthy and pays so much more taxes than everyone else that he personally should expect to get more special services from the government because he's paid more into it than anyone else.
What?
Yes. And he also says that his whole thing is because if he wasn't, because I've asked him straight up, so you're talking about government transparency. So you walk into a building and you see a lady behind the counter and you walk up to her and she says, I don't want to be filmed. And you start giving her a hard time and asking her if you should call the ambulance and all this nonsense and pissing her off and this and that and the other thing. What does that have to do with government transparency? Mm-hmm. And what he says is, I got an email from a guy once who saw me auditing the building he was in and said, I wanted to talk to you, but I didn't want to risk my job, so I'm doing this anonymous. But I'm going to send you some documentation that proves one of these cops is skimming money or something, right? Mm-hmm. So that's his big excuse. Is like, if I wasn't doing this, I would have never got that email. So I am uncovering government, through that. But it's like, but there are other ways to get to that point without harassing random innocent people, and the best part is to support that. He gave me a link to a video. We showed it here on my stream and I dissected it where he used that information. Now, this is the video that he's using to prove that he's out there fighting for freedom and rights and to expose government, conspiracies or corruption or whatever. He takes the information he got in that email and goes to the police dispatch office and tells one of the dispatchers doesn't offer, first of all, he's in the wrong place. Second, he doesn't offer anything on paper or any proof or he just tells them that and said, see, here I am, busting corruption and destroying the evil people in the system and bringing them down by walking up to some lady who has nothing to do with anything. She just dispatch and telling her, I got an email that a cop was bad. Okay, sir, is there anything I can help you with today? Yeah, I got an email that this cop was a bad guy. Okay, so what do you want me to do about it? Like, give me a break, dude.
It's no different. It's no different than when Chili says, "Well, I saw this on a video." So I like he did the other day. I forget who showed it, but I think it may have been Blue Bear. I saw a video about this, so I'm calling your police station or your police department to harass you about it because it's on a video. It must be crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
What about Grandma Frauditor?
Oh, Kate Kidman?
Yes.
Yeah. She's another tool and a half. Man, that lady is, I mean, she's another one who's beyond. Like, at this point, you can't even talk to her because she don't want to hear it, and there's no way she'll ever learn. And she's so old, it's like you don't want to see her spend the rest of her life in prison over being an idiot. Mm-hmm. But it's like, what really gets my goat with her is she has this thing, kind of like DMA with the libraries. She has this thing with kids, like going to schools and filming little kids. Like, how am I supposed to believe for even a second that you're not doing that on purpose to cause a reaction? You know damn well people are going to get upset about you filming their kids. Mm-hmm. So let's go out of our way to film kids. Let's make that our focus to show the government corruption. What? How does a brain even make that connection? I don't get it. Maybe her neurons don't fire properly. Yes, unclean hands. We're talking about your girlfriend, Betty Buttcrack.
She's made some of the same leaps of illogic that broken system, broken trust tends to make. So I choose to believe it's just intellectual disconnect.
Yeah. Intellectual disconnect, dishonesty, everything. I mean,
yep.
Oh, man. Well, DMA is specifically, because somebody mentioned him in the chat just now, Unicorn. And one of the things, too, with him specifically, seriously, what is with the libraries? Like, what's the point at all?
I actually get that. Believe it or not, I actually get that. So this is the thing. What is a typical library? Or more to the point, when someone says library, what image comes to mind?
Books, computers, people sitting around reading, doing their homework.
All of which requires silence, right? A certain degree of calm.
Right.
So now that I think we've established just on this stream well enough that frauditors especially want attention. That's why we call them frauditors. So in a hustling, bustling place like Union Station, they're not going to get attention no matter what they do. They might get it from one or two people around them, but it's not going to get the facility up in arms. But now, transplant their antics into a library. How easy would it be to piss off the employees by being disruptive? How much attention do they stand to get by being disruptive?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. But see, that's the thing. That's always my thing with these guys is I understand what you're saying completely, and it makes perfect sense. But what I'm looking at it is from the point of view of what their excuse for doing it is. We know that that's the reality behind why they do it, but what's their reasoning that they try to sell through their false narrative of why a library is their target?
Right.
Yeah, because it's an easy target. Yeah. That's why I always say, like, and I've said this several times, the whole thing with going after the cops, right? They're always saying, like, oh, these are armed thugs and they're tyrants and they're this and they're that and they're the other thing. But if you do a search right now on YouTube, just type in, First Amendment audit, you will see thousands and thousands of videos. So where are all these tyrants at? Because in none of those videos am I seeing anyone getting handcuffed to a post and beaten with a stick for filming. Nowhere on there am I seeing any tyrannical behavior on any level. And to me, the cops are actually a soft target. And these guys get a rush off of going after somebody with a gun that they know for a fact isn't going to shoot them because they're not crossing that line. So it's like, how do I make myself feel like a bigger, more powerful man? Well, I'll go after someone with a gun, but someone with a gun who I know specifically isn't going to use it, right? So in a sense, cops are a soft target. So they go after the cops all the time because they're not going to shoot you just for filming. So get up in their face and start swearing at them, and there's nothing they can do. And then you're going to say, well, that proves that the system's corrupt. No, if the system was corrupt, they'd have you on the floor and they'd be beating you and stomping you into the mud. But none of that happens, does it? One of the things that I love to point out is the whole walk of shame thing, okay? Because if you look at every single walk of shame video, here's what you're going to see, right? And you could do the same thing if you do a search for ID refusal and find the same results. What happens? The cop asks for ID. They don't show it. And you get an argument with the cop for whatever it is, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever it is. And then they walk away and they do the quote unquote walk of shame. So what you're selling is these tyrants violated my rights. But what does the actual video show? If it gets to the point where it's the walk of shame, what does that actually mean? One, they didn't stop you from filming because you're filming them doing the quote unquote walk of shame. Two, they didn't violate your First Amendment right to stop you from speaking because you're saying walk of shame. So they didn't stop you from talking. And if it was an ID refusal, you never showed your ID. So what did the cops do wrong? They didn't force you to show your ID because you didn't. They didn't force you to stop filming because you still are. They didn't force you to stop talking because you're saying walk of shame. So what's the problem? Why is that a fail? What did the cops do that was so tyrannical and evil? How does your video even exist? If cops are just out there doing this, then how come there are thousands and thousands of videos online of you idiots doing it and the cops not forcing you to show your ID, not forcing you to stop filming, not forcing you to shut up? So where are all these cops that you're telling us are these evil tyrants that are doing this stuff?
Unclean Hands says that his upcoming premiere is a black tie event. Dress appropriately. So, Unclean Hands, I have to ask this question. And if Blue Bear were here, he'd be glad I was asking this question. I have to wear a black tie, but do I have to wear anything else?
Yes. Actually, that's coming up pretty soon, isn't it? Unclean, like at 10. So maybe we'll start wrapping this up.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I want to thank you very much. It was an honor to have you up here. Love your stuff. I've been following you forever. It was great to having you, man. Thank you very much for coming up. This is a great way to kick off our Thanksgiving weekend or week, whatever, because, school, work, closed, everything. Anyway, so I'll be back up here tomorrow for my Thanksgiving stream, and we'll all have a good time. And again, thank you once again for joining me, and for everybody in the chat. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you very much for having me. It's it's always great to talk about this stuff with other intelligent people, and this got my brain going before I even had coffee. So that says something very positive about this channel. So I'm rarely able to tune in, but today I was very fortunate too, and I'm very glad that you put up with me for all this time. So thank you, and thank everybody in the chat, and to those who can't spell and capitalize my name correctly, it's right here on the screen. So if you can't spell it and capitalize it correctly, I'm not going to talk to you. It's just it's
all right. Well, take it easy. And again, thank you very much for coming.
Yes, sir.
And everyone in the chat, thank you guys all for being here. Love you guys. Love our morning streams. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do since it is, Thanksgiving. I want to do something special. I haven't quite decided exactly what it's going to be yet, but we're going to have some fun. Love you guys. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to check out Unclean Hands video, which I think he drops at 10. So make sure you guys go and check that out, and I'll probably be there in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. And like I always say at the end of my stream, I bring my Elvis gnome out, and he says, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm all shook up. Yeah, yeah."